1963. My dear fellow clergymen, while confined in the Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement calling my present activities unwise and untimely. Seldom do I pause to answer criticisms of my work and ideas. If I sought to answer all the criticisms that cross my desk, my secretaries will have little time for anything other than such correspondence in the course of the day, and I will have no time for constructive work. But since I feel that you're a man of genuine goodwill and that your criticisms are sincerely set forth, I want to try to answer your statement in what I hope will be patient and reasonable terms. I think I should indicate why I am here in Birmingham, since you have been influenced by the view which argues against outsiders coming in. I have the honor of serving as president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization operating in every southern state with headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. We have 85 affiliated organizations across the South, and one of them is the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. Frequently, we share staff, educational, and financial resources with our affiliates. Several months ago, the affiliate here in Birmingham asked us to be on call to engage in a nonviolent direct action program, if such we deemed necessary. We readily consented, and when the hour came, we lived up to our promise. So I, along with several members of my staff, are here because we were invited here. I am here because I have organizational ties here. But more basically, I'm in Birmingham because injustice is here. Just as the prophets of the 8th century BC left their villages and carried their thus saith the Lord far beyond the boundaries of their hometowns, and just as the Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the far corners of the Greco-Roman world, so I'm compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the Macedonian call for aid. You may well ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path? You are quite right in calling for negotiation. Indeed, this is the very purpose of direct action. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and foster such a tension that a community which has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. It seeks so to dramatize the issue that it can no longer be ignored. By citing the creation of tension as part of the work of the nonviolent resistance may sound rather shocking, but I must confess that I am not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly opposed violent tension, but there is a type of constructive nonviolent tension which is necessary for growth. We have waited for more than 340 years for our constitutional and God-given rights. The nations of Asia and Africa are moving with jet-like speed toward gaining political independence, while we still creep at horse and buggy pace toward gaining a cup of coffee at a lunch. Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation to say words. But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at hell, women, and drown your sisters and brothers at him, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and even kill your black brothers and sisters, when you've seen the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the public amusement park that's just been advertised on television, and see tears swelling up in her eyes when she's told that fun time is close to color children, and see ominous clouds of inferiority beginning to form in her little mental sky, and see her beginning to deserve her personality by developing an unconscious bitterness toward white people. When you had to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son who was asking, Daddy, why is white people treating colored people so mean? When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you. When you're humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading white and colored. When your first name becomes nigger, your middle name becomes boy, however old you are, and your last name becomes John. And your wife and mother are never given the respected title Mrs. When you are harried by day and haunted by night by the fact that you are a Negro, living constantly at tiptoe stands, never quite knowing what to expect next, and are plagued with interference and outer resentments. When you are forever finding a degenerating sense of nobodiness, then you'll understand why you find it difficult to wait. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. I hope, sirs, you can understand our legitimate and avoidable impatience. I express a great deal of anxiety over our willingness to break laws. This is certainly a legitimate concern, since we have so diligently urged people to obey the Supreme Court decision of 1954 outlawing segregation in public schools. At first glance, it may seem rather paradoxical for us continuously to break laws. One may well ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? The answer lies in the fact that there are two types of laws, just and unjust. I would be the first to advocate obeying just laws. One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. I would agree with St. Augustine that an unjust law is no law at all. Sometimes the law is used on its face and unjust in its application. For instance, I have been arrested on a charge of parading without a permit. Now, there is nothing wrong with having an ordinance which requires a permit for a parade, but such an ordinance becomes unjust when it's used to maintain segregation and to deny the citizens First Amendment privilege of peaceful assembly and protest. I hope you're able to see the distinction I'm trying to point out. In no sense do I advocate evading or defying the law, as would the rabid segregationists. That would lead to anarchy. One who breaks an unjust law must do so openly, lovingly, and with a willingness to accept the penalty. I submit to an individual who breaks a law that his conscience tells him is unjust, and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to rouse the conscience of the community over its injustice, is in reality expressing the highest respect for the law. In spite of my shattered dreams, I came to Birmingham with what I hope that white religious leaderships of this community will see the justice of our cause and with deep moral concern, which serve as the channel through which our just grievances can reach their power structure. I had hoped that each of you would understand, but again, I am disappointed. I have heard numerous Southern religious leaders admonish their worshipers to comply with a desegregation decision because it is the law. But I have longed to hear white ministers declare, follow this decree, because integration is morally right, and because the Negro is your brother. In the midst of blatant injustices inflicted upon the Negro, I have watched white churchmen stand on the sideline and mouth poised irrelevances and holy things that are common. In the midst of a mighty struggle to rid our nation of racial and economic injustice, I have heard many ministers say, those are social issues with which the gospel has no real concern. And I have watched many churches commit themselves to a completely otherworldly religion which makes a strange, unbiblical distinction between body and soul, between the sacred and the secular. But the judgment of God is upon the church as never before. If today's church does not recapture the sacrificial spirit of the early church, it will lose its authenticity, forfeit the loyalty of millions, and be dismissed as an irrelevant social group with no meaning for the 20th century. Every day I meet young people whose disappointment with the church has turned to outright disgust. Never before have I written so long a letter. I'm afraid it is too long to take your precious time. I can assure you that it would have been much shorter if I had been writing from a comfortable desk, but what else can one do when he's alone in a narrow jail cell other than writing long letters, think long thoughts, pray long prayers? If I said anything in this letter that overstates the truth and indicates an unreasonable impatience, I beg you to forgive me. If I said anything that understates the truth and indicates my having a patience that allows me to settle for anything less than brotherhood, I beg God to forgive me. I hope this letter finds you strong in faith. I also hope that circumstances will soon make it possible for me to meet each of you, not as an integrationist or civil rights leader, but as a fellow clergyman and a Christian brother. Let us all hope that the dark clouds of racial prejudge will soon pass away, and the deep fog of misunderstanding will soon be lifted from our fear-drenched communities. And in some not too distant tomorrow, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine over our great nation with all their scintillating beauty. Yours for the cause of peace and brotherhood, Martin Luther King Jr.
Here, here.